Hey now, welcome to the Dirty Side of the Track, America's leading Formula One podcast. I'm Brian, that's Rob, and as we were talking about before we started recording, here's a garbled entry. Turn it to you, Rob.
Classic Brian, never change.
Nope.
What are we doing? Oh, yeah, what are we doing? Well, we are going to have a usual kind of show with news and social and all that kind of good stuff. We've finally got 100 seconds of DRS guest on the show today. Brian lit the 100 seconds of DRS. It's like a bat signal. It just shines a big DRS into the sky, and you guys responded.
Yes.
We are recording this on a Saturday, and it's Saturday afternoon, and as we sit here, we have just recorded 3 DRS interviews this morning, one of which will be dropping on today's show, which will be Vincenzo Landino, which was a great chat to have him on the pod finally.
Thank you, Vincenzo.
Yeah, we've been chasing him. Well, as you'll hear later, I may have been stalking him for a while. So he'll be on, and we've got 2 more to drop. So let's keep this wagon a-rolling, and let's have more of you sign up to do DRS. That's fantastic. So like I say, news and social. We're going to hit some of the F1 crap that we did for Bahrain. We didn't get a chance to read them out, so we're going to spend a little bit of time today, being as we don't have a race review, to go over some of our favourite F1 crap and send the call to arms out, ready for Jeddah next week to have more F1 crap. Brian will indulge himself on a fantasy update because the normal service will be resumed and he will be beating me quite severely. And then we'll wrap it all up with a preview of next week's race at Jeddah. Sound like a plan, Brian?
Do it. Let's do it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to let you dive in on the first part of news and social because it starts with stats, which rumour has it is in your wheelhouse.
It is, and this is a good one. I found this online, and we kind of went through this a little bit. Max Verstappen has now won 15 of the last 20 races, dating back to Imola last season. Not even Lewis has matched that winning percentage over a 20-race stretch. Schumacher's, and here's Rob found these items, so Rob, thanks for this. Schumacher's best stretch, 14 of 20. Seb, 13 of 20. Lewis, as I just said, 14 of 20. Actually multiple times. But it's just shocking to hear that over a 20-race stretch, this is the best win percentage that we've seen. Just unbelievable. And the domination by Max. Again, everyone on one side wants to say it's the car, and then everyone on the other side wants to say it's the driver. I think it's a mix and marriage of both. A tremendous driver who is becoming a worldly talent that will go down in the history books if this keeps up, with a car that is also amazing. So you got to have both. You can't have one, and you got to have both for domination like this in just abundance.
Yeah, agree. I mean, I wish I could go back in time and have all of the kind of... we seem to be in an era right now, it feels like we've got like tech stuff at our fingertips. If you want to dive into aerodynamics, you go onto Twitter, you find some video on YouTube. You know, you can become, and I won't say an aerodynamic expert, because you can't become an expert overnight, but you can get a much better appreciation of how sensitive these cars are these days to things than probably I could back in the day when I was watching it. So I think about how Schumacher, when he was in the Benetton, and it wasn't widely seen as one of the best cars on the grid, but he was able to put that thing up where it shouldn't have been. Is that possible in the era we're in now? So I agree with you, Brian. It's a blend of man and machine, but is the machine element now taking away the ability to have like someone drag a bag of bolts around the track and put it up at the top on skill alone? I don't know, because it's difficult to go back in time and understand. I don't know. Were they that different back then as well?
Well, it's a great question. I think you see the delta. I just don't know if it's wide enough to say near the top. Right, I would argue Albon, whenever he scored points last year, that was dragging a bag of bolts around and getting it into the top 10. That's not near the top, but being in the points for a lower midfield team is impressive. So maybe we just shouldn't expect somebody to be able to take a car that isn't near the top and turn it into the top. But someone who can do that in the midfield, I think, is a magician. And last week, Valtteri, as I called him, king of the midfield, Paul called him best of the rest. I mean, you see that. Talent rises. It's just, I don't know if with the cars the way they are, how far you can take it.
Yeah. I just kind of wondered if you had that kind of, absolute worldly driver that you dropped into a Haas, could they do anything with it? But anyway, keeping the stats going, from listener Lee on the Discord, dropped a nice little stat in there that Alonso is now the first driver to race for all turbo hybrid era engine manufacturers, which is a real... Well, it's a nerdy stat, but I appreciate it, Lee, so thank you very much.
That's a great stat, Lee. Thank you. And we learned this week, after Bahrain, the extent of Lance Stroll's injuries. And we saw him in the hospital with 2 arms, basically elbows to hands bandaged, especially forearms to hands, and the broken wrists, and then his foot and the toe. And you see him laying in the hospital bed, and for nearly 2 weeks trying to get ready to recover, totally kept under wraps. We heard he was, maybe a broken wrist or two, and then he shows up. It was, I think, worse than we anticipated.
Yeah, and I don't get why keeping it such a classified Area 52 type secret, because
Isn't Area 51.
Well, I know, but whatever.
One better.
It's Area 51's for aliens. Area 52 is for F1 secrets. Come on, get to grips with things, will you, Brian? Because he can either pass the medical tests from F1 or he can't.
Right.
So if they show all this video of him doing all this, are they worried that the doctors at the FIA are going to go, they're already going to say, well, he can't race before they've even let him do the test? I don't imagine that would be the case, but it just seemed weird that they kind of kept it under wraps for so long. So, well, what else did we have? We had... I got to go back and listen to the original or read the original interview, because I've got a funny feeling this is one of these ones that's taken out of context and everything's whipping up for something that maybe he didn't say. But the news that hit the Twitterverse was that Hamilton says that Mercedes ignored his feedback on what the car needed for this year and that engineers need to be held accountable. It was covered by a lot of other places as well. But then I heard, and I can't remember if it was today or yesterday, I heard somebody say, you've got to go back and read the original interview because it's taken out of context. And I haven't, so now I can't comment on it. Well,
the fact, though, that there's smoke, at least here, acknowledging the context may not be perfect, it's clearly in the same milieu of they didn't take my feedback. Whether it's how much or accountable or what it may be, because then friend of the pod, Nate Saunders, and ESPN covered this as well. So it's not merely a rumor. It just may not be as directionally far out as we may think in terms of the impact of what he said. But it does sound like there's a lot of frustration at Mercedes, and we'll come back to Mercedes in a second. Some sad news this week. Mohammed bin Sulayem lost his son. Just tragic. Our thoughts are with him and his family and friends. Terrible to hear. I know we've had some harsh words about things he said in the past and some of his actions, but we're all people doing our thing, and that's just god-awful. So we think about him. But back to Mercedes, Rob.
Yeah, there was this rumor that they were kind of, well, not a rumor, it had been said that they've kind of got these two concepts. They've got Plan B running at the same time. And everyone was saying, how can they be doing that with the cost cap? And I was reading some articles. No, this is all possible. It is possible to have two concepts going at the same time. But actually, no, Toto's come out and said, we're getting to a position where we've actually got to back a horse now. We've got to put all our efforts behind one, because the way that you can see Red Bull, Ferrari, and Aston Martin going at the moment, they can't hedge their bets and kind of decide to see if they can keep both going. They're just really going to have to nail their colours to the mast and go for one of them, which, got to be honest, makes massive sense.
Does.
If you're right up at the front, if you're Red Bull, you can probably, and you had any kind of leftover catering budget, you can probably afford to maybe be tinkering with a second design to see if you can maybe bring something after the break that's going to make you even more dominant. But when I don't know, Mercedes disappointed me a little bit. I had such high hopes that we saw the peak at the end of last season was then going to carry that momentum into this season. It's like they've forgotten what the car was like at the end of last year and gone back to pre-break. And I don't get how that works. It obviously can't be that simplistic.
Well, everyone joked they'd thrown it in the garbage at the end of the season. Maybe they should have taken some notes before they did so. I don't know. I do agree with you. It is, they got to pick something and go with it, especially in the cost cap era. You can't just spend to develop and spend. You got to kind of pick. And actually, interestingly enough, I did get a chance to kind of have a quick chat with Toto this week, and so he reached out to me and he had a question, and he sent me the first.
I just send you an email.
Well, Toto, I didn't get your email. Could you tell me what it was?
I have it printed out.
You printed it out. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Could you just ask me what the question is exactly, please?
Who is your daddy, and what does he do?
Wait, hang on a second. Toto, why is that relevant? I don't understand. I'm not sure.
That was so not right.
Yes, all right. I used some Arnold Schwarzenegger in there. The real question is, what do you tell Lewis when you ask about the car this year? What do you guys talk about? What do you say to him about the design?
Trust me.
Okay, so you tell him to trust you is what you're saying. Do you have any news for Christian? Because the two of you beef about this a lot. What do you tell Christian Horner?
I'll be back.
Oh, some of those might have been Schwarzenegger. Some of those might have been Toto. That was my chat with Toto Wolff.
Oh my gosh. Do you know what? There's sometimes I always think, I wonder what it'd be like if I monologued a podcast and did it by myself.
You should find out. Do your own. Oh, God, sorry. I didn't indulge myself.
I mean,
there.
you did mention that you had something that you were planning and that I might want to edit it out, but no, we record it, we try not to edit it, so people are going to hear that, Brian. Yeah, we're stuck with that. Right, where on earth were we?
So the media ratings came out for Bahrain GP. And every week, the media rates the drivers on how they did, and they aggregate the scores, and it looks as though there were sort of 7 or 8 scores, one of them being, at least on this chart, included some of the Reddit scores, so take it with a grain of salt. But not surprisingly, Fernando and Max were atop of the charts. The thing I found interesting was who was third, and we kind of talked about this already today on someone who can pull a bag of bolts around the track, but it was Alex Albon in the Williams, third highest rated driver at the Bahrain GP. Rob, where does that sit with you in your mind? Does that sound right?
Maybe. It's like, I don't really remember him doing a whole heap. We know he got up into the points, right? Well, did he finish 8th, 9th?
10th.
Was it 10th?
Yeah, I thought it was Valtteri, Pierre, and
yeah,
then
you're
Alex.
probably right. You're probably right. So I didn't expect to see him. If you'd have asked me to name, because this is what, from, if I just look at the thing here, this is 7 collated scores, right? So 7 different sources, and they've consistently got him right up there as third performer, which I would never have guessed it. There would have been other names I would have thrown in there. Being biased, I would have probably had Valtteri up there. I thought he did well. I think that's a little harsh on Lance Stroll as well, because we all beat up on him for, he's just daddy's money is why you're driving. And he pretty much showed in that race that despite the fact that he's like the $6 million man being held together by screws, he did a really stellar job to get that car around. So I think he's a better driver than a lot of people would like to give him credit for, because I think the narrative is easier just to criticize him because he's racing for his dad.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. I just was shocked that Albon was third. And I'm not knocking Alex.
No,
it just was surprising to see him in third place. It made sense, but it was kind of eye-opening. A couple other notes that were fascinating going into Bahrain. We had the number of times since the last pole. Since Max was on pole in Abu Dhabi, he had 0, which was the shortest time since the last pole position going into Bahrain. The number 2 driver, and this is obvious, but what you have to remind yourself, is Kevin Magnussen because of Brazil. So Magnussen was second going into Bahrain in terms of distance, time, duration since last pole. The longest person who'd ever had pole before, Fernando Alonso, 169 races. Now, I know he didn't get pole, but races since last podium, Magnussen is 140 races. He's at the bottom, the way Fernando was in terms of poles. Magnussen is in terms of podiums, but obviously now with podiums, Fernando erased the 24 races since then and is now a recent 0 races since podium winner.
Yeah, I do find that on the other one, the races since last pole, it just shows you how long Hülkenberg and Alonso have been in F1, because you look at that chart and you've got Verstappen 0, Magnussen 1, Sainz 3, 5, 9, 20, 23, 25, 29, down to Stroll in 47, which I don't think Stroll's ever had pole, so that must be he's raced 47 times.
Yeah, no, he did apparently.
And then you go Hülkenberg 163 and Alonso 169. That was probably also, I guess Hülkenberg has never had a pole and he's done 163 Grand Prix, maybe?
Never had a podium.
No, I went back up to the pole stats.
I thought that meant that they'd had a pole and since the last one.
I'm going to say it doesn't, because it's got Lance Stroll at 47. I would say he's never had pole. So that's going to be...
Didn't he have like a turkey race or something?
Did he?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm remembering.
Maybe he did then. Maybe he did. When did Hülkenberg...
I was right. Look at this. 2020 Turkish Grand Prix. Stroll took his first pole position.
When did Hülkenberg get pole?
By the way, can we just say I got it right there? Stroll?
Yeah, of course we can. I'm happy to celebrate Brian getting something right. Go on, type into Google as we live research. We should have a jingle for this. Some sort of.
I can't play the jingle and do the typing.
Come on, Hülkenberg pole. Go. Do it. Pressure. I'm going to move on in a minute. I'm bored now.
You should move on. I think it was the 2010 Brazilian Grand Prix.
Wow, okay. Right.
Pretty sure on that one.
Obviously, that was thrilling for everyone to listen to Brian type into Google, but moving on. Lando to what team next rumours are starting to spice up. So with McLaren seeming to deliver an absolute bag of bolts and Lando being seen as a It's pretty hot property on the grid, to be honest. There's a lot of stuff swirling around now as to where he might be next year, because we got to remember we're only going to be a few months away from the good old classic silly season, which tends to start ramping up just before the break. So again, if you're new to F1, don't think that this is all locked in for 2023 and this is next year's story we're already talking about. Silly season rumors will start very early on.
It's still weird to me as a fan that people switch teams with half a season left. I mean, and then stick for the rest of the season with the old team and be sort of lame ducks. But yeah, the Lando rumors are on the Discord. We were talking, a lot of us, about Lando and Max and their relationship, and is there a potential for Lando in a Red Bull, which all of us blew our minds. I doubt that'll happen. We all do, but it was kind of fascinating.
I think it all kind of centers around the Drive to Survive episode when they were all playing whatever it was. It wasn't tennis. Was it pickleball? I don't even know what they were all playing together, but was it? And there seems to be a bit of a bromance there in the Lando and Max camp. So I think you have to be more than just mates to race together. But watch this space, I would say, because McLaren not doing well. No. And they dropped a kind of an update they didn't drop an update. There was an article online that they feel that they got kind of screwed last year, that when the regs changed around the ride height, I can't remember exactly when it was during the year, but they changed it, didn't they, because of the porpoising. It was the way that the FIA were going to help deal with the porpoising thing. The resolution to that, they say, came 4 weeks too late for them. They'd already picked a direction to go in. This change to the regs kind of really impacted them, and apparently it's why they got it's in such a fundamental area of the car. It's why it's taken them so long to recover it. So I remember us talking about this when the rumour broke about McLaren had gone in the wrong direction, and I'll hold my hands up for being wrong because I laughed it off in the pod and went, you can't have gone completely off in the wrong direction. But sitting here now, watching how that car performed in testing and then in Bahrain, and then hearing this come out about they feel they kind of got screwed over by the new regs, well, Lando's in for a long old season, and Piastri ain't going to be tearing it up on his debut season, I don't think. They
got to get the car kind of worn into the race. Like, they should be allowed to go out and run like 60 laps of formation laps and then just slap some soft tires on it. And like, that was the pace Lando had at that point of the Bahrain GP. It was like the car was broken in. And he'd settled in and it was working finally. So somehow they got to just warm this thing up for like a week, and then it works just enough.
Last but not least, before we go over to Brian's video vault, David Sanchez is going to leave Ferrari, or has left Ferrari, but is on extended gardening leave, and we don't know where he's going yet. So he's been he's been like chief designer of the cars for the last 2 years. He was chief aerodynamist for a while, and he's basically been at Maranello for 10 years now, and wasn't thought to be amongst the broken parts that Fred was going to be coming through with his new broom and sweeping away. So apparently it is quite a shock that it sounds like he's decided to go, but we don't know where he's going yet. So, good old Ferrari. Fred comes in, we're going to steady the ship, and then without any kind of word whatsoever, one of the best guys there ups and leaves. So, great. I'm buckling myself in for another Ferrari roller coaster for the season.
Well, did you see last Ferrari note and last real news? Did you see after the Bahrain GP, the story comes out that it wasn't necessarily the power unit that let go. It was the way they'd kind of cobbled it all together at the last minute. Because remember, Charlotte had a battery challenge.
Yes.
And they changed it overnight, and they said they fixed it. Apparently, it was, at least according to some of the news I was reading, it was like a mechanic's error in terms of the way things are put together. And that's what ended up causing everything to let go. But the power unit might actually be okay. And it wasn't that. So I don't know. Like, I mean, it may not have been reliability. It may have been craftsmanship potentially on the car. I'm serious. You didn't see any of this?
Is this? I missed this one. Is this like the equivalent of like putting the batteries in the wrong way around in the remote control and then not understanding why it's not working?
Which no one in my family's ever done. I don't know. Let's hope not, and let's hope it's fine. But I saw that and I'm like, Ferrari finding new ways to Ferrari. So, videos this week. The first two, they're special kinds of videos. It's where you use your eyes and you read a screen and there's no sound. And it's called articles. And I'm very proud of myself for having read 2 of them this week. Somebody tell my wife I read something. And so one was Alex Albon's story in the Players Tribune. It is great. It's called The Test. And at first I thought it would be about testing. It's not at all. It's the test he faced as a driver, but also as a person in losing his ride at Red Bull. It is phenomenal. It is really worth the read. There's an accompanying video, but just read the article. We'll all raise our intelligence game a little bit by using our eyes and reading words. Players Tribune, we'll put the link in the thing. Players
In
Tribune.
the thing.
Yeah.
In the show notes, Brian. Yeah. I'm a little bit annoyed here because two things. And I know you've got another one to read out here, but Brian's video vault really should be videos. We did have the read all about it jingle that we could have used for newspapery type articles. So, you know,
that's really for Rob Reed. And speaking of Rob Reed, I went back and reread his amazing Forbes article on Drive to Survive. Did you read that when it originally came out,
I
Rob?
did indeed, yes.
So good. I went back and read it again now that DTS is kind of settled in. If you haven't read friend of the pod, Rob Reed's Forbes article on Drive to Survive, check that out too. It was just tremendous.
So, shall I now get the key to the video vault and open it up?
Yeah, go for it.
We still got to get a sound effect for this.
Okay. And so a couple things. I'll be honest, and they're calling him a competitor is not really accurate, but somebody we really follow in terms of the way they've done stuff. WTF1, fantastic, great pod. Obviously, as if you know, if you've ever seen them, Matt and Tommy left and started P1. I loved Internet's Best Reactions with Matt WTF when he did those. Those were like the crown of my Sunday night. I'd watch that, would come out, and then I would go to bed. And I'm like, that was great. So someone named Jack Nichols did it for WTF1 this week, and it just was not the same. And it wasn't bad. I mean, good job, Jack. I'm cheering for you, buddy. But it was not Matt. It was 6 minutes. It wasn't 18 minutes. I didn't laugh. It was just not the same. And I know I'm the old guy. Get off my lawn. I want the old version. But they did do funniest tweets on P1. Matt did it 15 minutes. Felt like settling into a comfy old chair. And so if you don't watch P1 funniest tweets at the ends of the races, give it about 6 or 7 hours. It usually comes out. So good. Do you watch those, Rob?
Yeah, I do. I really like Matt and Tommy, and I think really, now looking back at it, I'm a Matt and Tommy fan, not a WTF1 fan, because now they've gone to P1. I'm over there. And
I know Charlie. We follow her she's on WTF1, Charlie Louise, and we interacted with her a bit on Twitter over time. She's great. It's just the chemistry of everyone together. I thought is better on P1, but we'll see. Ferrari had an article. Again, I know we're an F1, but Ferrari is an F1 team on the Puro Sangue, I think, on Top Gear. $400,000 SUV. It's an SUV, Rob. They even called it an SUV. They tried to call it an FUV, a Ferrari utility vehicle, but Top Gear and Tom Ford said it's an SUV. 6.5 liter V12.
They're the new Top Gear and they're wrong. Clarkson wouldn't have called it an SUV, therefore it's not.
Please. You would have called it an SUV. And speaking of 6.5 liter V12s, Chris Harris drove the Aston Martin Valkyrie. This is the coolest video. You got to check this out. It's a 10-minute road car that Aston Martin makes. It's basically an F1 car. And then they make an even more insane version at the end that you'll see. I mean, if you like cars at all, check it out. But back to really why we're here. I'll do this quick. Connor Moore had some impressions, 3 minutes. Now, this came out like the day before Bahrain. I just missed it on that Saturday, so I wanted to throw it in. It was great. I loved it. What do you think of it, Rob?
I love it. I love Connor Moore. He's brilliant. He does all sports. He does F1. He does English football as well. I mean, he's just fantastic. You've got to watch this. I actually watched this one, so for once, so
3 minutes, it's worth it. And then Red Bull, Christian Horner was on Bloomberg TV. Look at me going all over the place here. Only has 1.5 thousand views. He called Drive to Survive Kardashians on Wheels.
She's a bit pot kettle black because really Drive to Survive this season was at home with the Horners.
That's actually really good. And then the last two, please, here's the first. You have to watch this one. Has Lewis Hamilton ever lied to Toto Wolff? The lie detector test. Sky Sports F1. 8 minutes. It's great. It is great. For everyone who says Lewis is too mechanical or too rote with the press at times, just watch this. It's so much fun. He's taking a lie detector test. They ask him questions. I'm going to do one spoiler. His favorite teammate, still Valtteri.
Do you see the picture that was posted of...
that Valtteri posted?
Yeah, Valtteri posted post a picture of someone that looks at you the way that Lewis looks at me.
Yeah, so good. And then the last one, because I've got everyone's back, I think there's like 870 views at this point. And it's been out for a while. See where George Russell visited that changed him the most on the Marriott Bonvoy channel. I got back to Bonvoy. 1 minute. It's only a minute. It's a short. And literally, it's in the hundreds of views. That's how hard I work for the Dirty Siders to find the best content.
The best, or speaking of F1 crap, we launched our...
Segway Sam over there.
Our hashtag for the Bahrain Grand Prix, and we actually had some really good take-ups. We're going to just quickly go through the ones that we found. We had a number that was submitted through the Discord channel, and then we had a number that came over social media. I'm not sure that any were close. There's a couple that are closer than others. First off, mine, Piastri to take out Yuki on the first corner. Wrong. Brian, Gazman to make it 5 places on the first lap. Wrong, but, little asterisk there, the Gazman did overtake like 1 million cars to...
11. Yeah, he started 20th, ended 9th.
Yeah, exactly. So you had a premonition about Gasly overtaking, just not 5 on the first lap.
I was not... I was too anyway. I was too crappy with it, if you will.
We had this one's close, but I'm not quite sure it was precise enough. Maybe it was precise enough, but both Aston Martins into Q3 in qualifying, with Stroll in 9th and Alonso in 5th. So we're just missing the positions being correct. Hamilton and Perez to collide on lap 19 as Checo exits the pits on cold tyres. Didn't happen. Lewis outside the points and lapped on lap 48. Didn't happen. Stroll retires on lap 14. On lap 14 at turn 5 due to pain in his hands. I mean, there were a few mentioning the pain in his hands, but
I thought he might. I mean, that was a good prediction, especially when he ran right into Alonso on turn 4 of lap 1. But yeah,
30 plus references to win here before he retires due to battery issues. I'm not sure. I think I might have copied that wrong because I'm not quite sure who the win is here, but there we are. Hamilton, this is one of my favourites, and it actually wasn't too far off because they flagged it during the race as to which lap it came up on. But Hamilton's first tyres are good message to be heard on lap 23. Oh man. Over on social media, we had both Ferraris to take each other out on lap 1, turn 2, which, given they were on the second row of the grid, was a possibility, but we didn't get any. We got nothing. Everyone was clean. There was no safety cars, no crashes. Another Stroll one retires on lap 37 due to hand pain. This is my neighbour Jim. Checo wins, but ignores team messages on the final lap to allow Max to go by. Now, that's as we wrote it. He then further embellished it of Christian Horner to reveal himself as the Emperor from Star Wars and shoot Checo with thunderbolts out of his fingers. Now, I think that's maybe going a little bit too far for F1 crap, but Jim, we like your spirit there of trying to get on board the game. A couple more we had. This one we got to wait for. Lewis retires after round 4. Mick Schumacher takes over his seat and finishes 3rd in the standings, and that's Cyber Cynic or Mark from Australia on that one. I'm going to make you do the last one, Brian.
Lewis gets a booger stuck in his nose ring in lap 30 and makes a radio call about it from Matt. That didn't happen, but good guess. And he is still wearing the nose rings. So fantasy. Let's talk fantasy quickly. Boy, they really screwed it up again, didn't they? I mean, like, they have a whole new game, and they launch it 5 minutes before the first race, and there were some improvements in terms of the way it was going to work, but there's just so much bunching in terms of the way people pick teams. The valuation system is just, while it's better than the pump and dump that we had going last year, it's still not quite right. And the movements are minuscule. The largest one after Bahrain, Fernando Alonso went up 0.2 million, 200 grand. That's not a lot of movement for a guy who they predicted low. Now the whole world will have Fernando Alonso. If you don't have Fernando Alonso on your team, you're doing it wrong because of the cost benefit. You have to have him.
This is what it really turns me off about this game. Now, last year, it was the pumping and dumping and the people organising it on social to kind of buy a stock, pump it up, and you ended up towards the end of the year with people having an insane amount of budget so they could buy the best teams.
Right.
They announced they were going to get rid of that dynamic pricing, and I thought, woohoo! And there's a lot of rumouring around that, and this year we would see bigger movements. So if somebody did really well, they would go up a lot in value. If someone tanked, they would drop a lot, and that would actually happen from race to race to race. So you've got Alonso in race 1 from Bahrain. He does well. It goes up by a few million. Now you've got that dilemma. Do I keep the stock or do I cash in and now get a better team? And they just didn't do it. It's just pitiful. Just why bother even moving the price when it's going to move by that amount? It's just, like you say, everyone will all be able to have almost the same team within a matter of weeks because there's really no movement.
Well, and speaking of the same team, we have 96 people in the Dirty Side League that made it in those 4 or 5 minutes between when they launched the game. So thanks to all of you who weathered a tough sign-up process to make it in. We have 4 people at the top who differentiated themselves. They are, number 1, you're taking the Piastri, Number 2 at Alan Giron. Number 3, Blue Dragons Toro Rosso. Number 4, Neon Genesis F1 team. And then there are 15 people tied at 5th. And let me give a little explanation. So the first 4 people I just mentioned used a chip. All 4 of them used one of the Pump It Up chips. So basically, I think they all went with the Mega driver from last year, whatever it's called now, the 3X on a driver. And so at least that. So they used a chip to go above the 300. So good job. I mean, it was a great job by those 4 people. But then the next 15 people, myself included, I'm 5th with 14 of my closest friends. We all have the exact same team. We have the exact same team. So this is the point. That becomes what they call on Twitter a template. And if you don't, I've mentioned this before, follow at F1 Fantasy Hub. You should. Rob on there basically created the template, which was effectively triple Red Bull, triple Aston Martin, and Joe. And so I did a lot of my own research, and I was torn. I mentioned it last week. I changed my team right ahead of the race, away from Ferrari, away from Charles, which worked for me. And I went sort of the same method. I wrestled the most with my non-Red Bull, non-Aston driver, but I went with Zhou Guanyu. So everyone else did too. And there's other people on Twitter who said this is the template out of F1 Fantasy Tips as well, and others. So that is my challenge. I mean, there are 15 of us with the exact same score, which I think was one of the best you could do without using a chip, 299. But we're all going to have basically the same score for a while. So, and you can only make 2 free edits. So anyway, I would just like to say thanks to all, before we quit the F1 game itself from fantasy, from Formula One, I'd like to say thanks to all 96 people who entered. Super appreciate it. I'd like to give a special shout out to Rob. Vales fails. He's in 67th, which is good because, you know, he could be lower. 204 points. Not terrible, Rob. It's a respectable score.
I didn't just copy and paste what I found on the internet. I like to try and use my own view on things, and it's obviously wrong. I mean, it's the other thing that drives me nuts, which I found on there, was the scoring system, the way they've changed it this year for the overtakes. Gasly was a better pick this week than Stroll.
Yeah.
Where that can only be true in a fantasy world. Because Stroll blatantly had the better weekend, yet you're rewarded more for Gasly starting from the back and doing those million overtakes that we talked about earlier. That's actually better for you than picking and Stroll that had an awesome race weekend. So it's all just between the valuation stuff not really behaving itself. I would have liked to have seen Max get more expensive to take it out of the reach of people that didn't load in on him at the beginning. Alonso to jump from, what was he? Max is like 35 million and Alonso was 8.3. And he's now 8.5. Oh no one's going to be able to afford him.
Yeah, so if you're looking for an alternative to the game, it's worth mentioning the Formula Market. Our friend Dagan, he's been on the pod. Theformulamarket.com. You should check it out. It's like an actual kind of stock market approach to drivers and teams. Currently, I am in 4th. F1 Fantasy Hub is in 5th. So a lot of us nerds move in packs. Sorry, Rob. Not Rob.
I keep forgetting to go in and activate my DRS. That's the problem.
Oh, God, I forgot too.
And I haven't gone in there and activated it since the first day, so I've missed out on gazillions of stuff on there. I've got to set myself a reminder. Anywho, talking of reminders, we've been reminding people to come join DRS, and as we said at the beginning, we've got them in their thousands. Well, 3. And first up, we caught up with Vincenzo Landino, who goes by That F1 Guy on Twitter, and it was awesome catching up with him. So let's take a listen in on Vincenzo. Okay, so this week we put the call to arms out to get more people to come and join the 100 Seconds of DRS Club. And to my surprise, actually something that Brian did actually got a reaction, and we actually had people actually sign up. Now, the first person that we've brought on the show is somebody who I've been personally really internet stalking for a while now. It's my pleasure to finally welcome to the dirty side of the track, That F1 Guy, Vincenzo Landino.
I'm laughing over here. You can't hear me on the other side of the mic, but I'm laughing at you, Rob. I'm laughing at you. Stalking is to say the least of it.
There's a fine line.
But it's a good kind of stalking. It's appreciated stalking. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of Traded tweets back and forth. We've been trying to get it on before. We couldn't make schedules align. And then I really think, obviously, it's the big ticket that Valtteri has done this, and you want to add your name to the list alongside Valtteri, right?
Yeah, if Valtteri wasn't on the show, I probably would have said no. I'm also kidding about that.
So, Vincenzo, you are an amazing follow on Twitter and basically everywhere at Vincenzo Landino. And I actually follow you on LinkedIn so that I get the qualifiers sent to my inbox.
Ah, perfect.
Yeah. And so I guess I'd be curious, you have, I always look at your takes from the business side of F1.
Yeah.
It's more than that, but I read it as that, and marketing and business and all of those things. I guess I'd be curious, going back in time, how did you get into F1? Like, what kind of started bringing you in under the tent?
In general, F1, I mean, I've watched it since I was a kid, so it was always on. I had an uncle who was really into motorsport. We would we'd go karting, and we'd go to all the Lime Rock. So Rob, I think you're near Lime Rock. We would go there all the time, and we'd go to Ferrari days, and we'd go to the Porsche days where they'd, have all the Porsches on the track or the Ferraris on the track, and people would, that was just like, I guess, brought me into my love of just loud cars going fast. I mean, realistically, that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
And we would watch, and back in those days, like, I don't even remember fully, but I just remember watching the European cars. My uncle, we always had like access to the Italian TV stations somehow. I have no idea how they ever got them, but they always had access to them somehow here in the US. And I'm just like, I never questioned it. I was too young to question it or care. It was just like, oh, this is cool. The language that we all speak is on TV. Like, that's awesome, but we don't live there. All right, that's cool. And we would see the F1. We'd see it, and I was like, this is really cool. I remember a lot of watching 93. I remember seeing Senna's crash in 94, like, specifically. And those were like probably my first days of actually watching it. But falling in love with, for me, it was the prancing horse, just falling in love with the culture around that. And I don't know. I mean, that was the earliest memories of Formula One for me. And as I got older, I mean, no one was really around talking about it here in the States, right? It wasn't like something that, everyone, you go to a bar and everyone's watching a basketball game or a football game, American football game. But you don't have anyone talking about, Formula One. Usually it was the older crowd, which, as a young person, like, or as a person who's not driving at the time or whatever it is, like, you're not going to these Ferrari club meetups, which usually those are the people that were really into Formula One or racing in general, at least in my area. And so it was kind of like something you just, I don't know, you enjoyed it, you watched it, but you didn't really, there was no one to talk about it with. Again, only my uncle. And then as kind of social media came around, it's like you could find your own niche of people that you want to talk about something with. And for me, it was, I got sick of talking about corporate B2B. I mean, so a lot of my clients, I have a production company. We work with a lot of tech enterprise companies, and a lot of my clients all happen to also be Formula One sponsors or motorsport sponsors, which is besides the point. But I realized that, like, I didn't want to be talking about B2B. I didn't want to be the hashtag guy that was like hashtag analytics, hashtag data, hashtag B2B. And like, that wasn't my thing. And there's so many people that do that.
Right.
And I'm like, all right, this sucks. This is boring. Like, this doesn't make my time. Like, we already know we're wasting time on social media, right? Like, we know it's a time waster. Hard stop. I at least wanted to make that time wasting enjoyable. So I said, I'm gonna put something out there that I want to be known for, that I want to enjoy talking about. And I just said, screw it. I'm gonna start talking about Formula One. Shockingly, people started following and being more interested, which was like, oh, okay, you guys are actually really interested in the business take of things, or like the media side of things, which they are, right? People are, certain subset of people are. Yep. And that's it. And I just kept going with it. And I'm fortunate to have a wife that it has empowered me to like just keep going at that. Like, hey, just do it, go for it, which is nice because most of the time there's always someone that's like, that's stupid, don't do that. And she's like, no, go for it, like go all in on it. And so I've actually slowly started diverting more of my time toward the qualifier, my newsletter, the whole like F1 guy brand thing, and content towards business and culture in Formula One. I added the culture piece. I try to do just business, but I realized that like you've got to keep a little bit more of a mainstream piece. And I didn't want to talk about on the grid stuff. So the culture aspect of like how Formula One or just motorsport in general embeds in culture and has been slowly taking over more and more of our mainstream culture has been really I think a big sticking point with a lot of people.
I was interested to see on that point how the difference in momentum that you seem to be gathering over on, say, the LinkedIn side of it versus, say, the Twitter sphere. Because the Twitter sphere, to me, has kind of there's a lot of great content there. There's a lot of keyboard warriors out there that you must get sick and tired of almost dealing with. Whereas the LinkedIn, I've noticed motorsport, like even all the main brands, McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari, they're all kind of getting in there and having more of a presence. And you seem to be generating some real, like, I don't want to say it like this, but I will, like grown-up discussions over there. It's actually quite cool to watch it almost starting to take over on LinkedIn as well. I know I pinged you on that on a tweet the other day. Is like, how are you finding the difference between the two kind of spheres that you're working in?
Wait, so when you were stalking Vincenzo, you sent him ideas for what we talk about? Okay, sorry, Vincenzo.
Let me slip this in there. Hold on, let me just slip this. Let me slide this in there. No, LinkedIn's been fantastic because a lot of decision makers are over on LinkedIn. What I don't think, or where I think a lot of people, where there's they start calling like the sky is falling. Twitter, oh my God, it's going. Oh my God, Instagram, oh my, LinkedIn sucks. Oh my God, Microsoft's going to ruin it. And it's like, yeah, okay, just because maybe this group of people thinks it is. Like if you're on Twitter reading that information, of course they're going to say LinkedIn sucks, or of course they're going to say, Facebook's no good. But then you go over to Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn and you're like, holy shit, there's a whole group of people that are really engaged here, like super engaged. And the people over on LinkedIn, like I said, I check into the analytics and see like who's actually looking at my posts, who's actually checking my profile. And I mean, if you scroll through almost any of my posts or even like my like who's viewed your profile, which people like to rag on and say, oh, that's a stupid feature. And I'm like,
I use it.
Okay. I use it all the time. And it's like McLaren, Ferrari, Mercedes, Formula One, Las Vegas, Formula One, Miami, Everton football, AS Roma, no joke, Everton football, AS Roma, CAA, Juventus. And I'm just like, these people are actually reading, like they're clearly clicking through to my profile. So that is an added bonus that people don't seem to like want to give it credit for. But the fact that you can see all that is awesome. But also the fact that those types of people are reading my stuff is really cool. And it allows me to tailor my content if I have to. So at one point I saw there was a lot of McLaren folks looking at my content. I had posted about Williams, and there was a bunch of Williams folks. Like almost, I think the entire Williams team and Doralton team had looked at a post I made about Williams.
That's insane.
It was wild. But then also a bunch of McLaren folks were looking at it. So I posted something about McLaren my next post. And that, it's like, so you just have to kind of follow and understand where, whose eyeballs do you have, and then create content that way. And then LinkedIn's been great. I mean, you could do it on Twitter and other places too, but LinkedIn gives you like that direct like tie-in.
Well,
I mean, sorry, go on, Brian.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's important to note. You talk about Williams in the post you put out there. When Yost left Williams at the end of last year, we had just gotten him a Dirty Side T-shirt like 2 days prior. So if there's any correlation that you ever come across, let us know. But in seriousness,
I'll try and find that.
Yeah, let's suss that out. So in all seriousness, like, you talk about these teams and the interactions and the way they interact with the content. It is a whole new world. And whether it's through social media or here in the States, the growth.
Dude, let me cut you off real quick.
Yeah.
Did you see what Mercedes did this morning?
No.
Mercedes put out a letter to their fans.
Oh, I did see this.
Because they're watching how much their fans are like in an uproar over how bad the performance is. And they actually put out a letter to our fans. And I'm just like, if that doesn't tell you that they're not paying attention, they're not watching, and they're not listening to what people are saying, you're clueless.
But
like
that doesn't work though. I mean, it also, like, I appreciate them saying
so
take it easy. I think it inflames it personally. It's one of those things.
I'm in a group chat with a bunch of like Mercedes fans, and someone was like, yeah, that's my team. And I'm sorry, Alex, I'm calling you out on this one, and he's like, that's my team. Like, this is awesome. That's a GOAT thing. And I'm just like, yeah, they're doing that because they know it's going to be an absolute disappointment for you.
Yeah.
Every race. And I mean, listen, I hope Mercedes fights for the championship. I truly do. But it's kind of both ways. It means like you guys are focusing so much on what the fans are saying.
Right.
Because something else is wrong.
And I mean, all the rumors of not listening to Lewis that came out this week, and some of the conversations like that weren't productive. And then you're right, the fans got sort of toxic. But, again, we're having these discussions because of social media and because of the growth of F1, especially here in the U.S. I'd love your thoughts on that. Like, where do you see this going? Do you see this wave continuing and
the
growth
U.S. wave?
Yeah, U.S. growth of fandom in the U.S. Is there any part of it that is sustainable in the long run and, beyond 5 years from now? I'm just curious your thoughts, because I am super excited about it not being a secret handshake club anymore.
My fear is this. So, like, before we even got a Miami race, they already announced Vegas. And it was like, okay, not that I think they're going to announce another U.S. race before the Vegas race, because the Vegas race they're pumping a lot into. They're promoting that. F1 is promoting that themselves. They are, they bought land. It is, they're expected to spend $500 million to just to have this like space here before it goes off. Which I think is great. My fear becomes, do they need to one up themselves just to keep Americans interested? Like, does it have to, does it always become that level of thing? And that's what sucks. Like, to me, that is what sucks, because Americans on a whole, they love the bright shine. I mean, a lot of people do, right? But it almost seems like there's less tied to history, because there is very little, right? No one's sitting here going, yeah, let's bring back the Caesars Grand Prix. Let's be real about that. And so you have to look at it as like, what opportunities does F1 have to continue growing? Like, I don't see Drive to Survive continuing that much longer.
Right.
And not because it's not a great piece of content, but because Williams, Alfa Romeo, they're like, screw it, we're going to go make our own thing, and we're going to tell our narrative. Like, how long before it just becomes a drama? The Netflix thing just becomes a drama piece, and you'll always have an audience for that, always. But at what point does that continue feeding growth?
Right.
And so there's like a few things. So now you've pulled in fans, great. Now you've got them paying attention to some extent, great. Well, how do you keep them actually engaged? The product has to be good. The Miami Grand Prix was okay in terms of a racing perspective, right? It wasn't bad. It was okay though.
I'd agree.
It wasn't like a terrible race. There's plenty of other terrible races. It wasn't a blow me away race. The Coda's great, fantastic, but Coda is also a purpose-built track. Been there since 2012. There's so much more about Coda that you can love. That to me is the true USGP, right? Which it does get the name USGP. And then you've got Vegas, which is like, okay, what's going to happen? What's the actual racing going to look like there? Like, sure, the allure of Vegas and the lights and all the $1 million hospitality things that no one can afford. Like, yeah, that's cool. But how does that actually grow the sport? Aside from, and I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, only rich people can afford. Like, I don't say those things, because it's just like, yeah, but rich people are usually the ones that can afford most of these things anyway. It doesn't matter where you go. So let's like kind of squash that for a second. It's more about, how do you, like, most people are always going to be watching from home, any sport, right? The stadium, right. The track can only fit so many people. if the racing doesn't get better overall, you're going to have a problem.
We spoke about this on the pod a while ago, where I was kind of thinking that if you kind of look at US trying to become a microcosm of the rest of the world's Formula One, well, Vegas is going to look, in my view, to try to take them the US Monaco, right? It's going to have to deliver glamour and glitz every year, and if the racing can be okay, they'll probably get away with it because it'll be a bit like a Super Bowl halftime show. It will be the thing everyone looks forward to for the show. Now, COTA is amazing because it always delivers good racing. In my view, it's Miami that needs to sort itself out, because I think if you can deliver, say you've got 3 Grand Prix, maybe you grow to 4. If you can deliver 3 out of 4 or 2 out of 3 that deliver really good on-track racing, you'll be allowed a Vegas, even if the racing isn't as great, because it's the show. But I'm with you. If the racing doesn't deliver on the other 2 and it's only COTA, then I think people start not watching it again, and I'm not sure.
I think there's an analog, and I think it's baseball right now. I mean, baseball, look at the last 15 years of baseball viewership. It has gone down, down, and down. And this year, America's pastime, which never wanted to screw with records or how they measured games, has a pitch clock. They're working on a pitch clock to speed
Which
the
is
games
still
up.
too long, in my opinion.
Agreed, but I'm actually paying attention for the first time in 15 years. My ears perked up.
But okay, so here's
because if the game's 2:15 instead of 3 hours, maybe I'll watch.
But you're not paying attention because the overall game length has changed. You're paying attention now because there's something different. Oh, here's a cool little Here's a cool novelty, right?
Agreed.
It's not.
And maybe it fixes my problem. Maybe I fall asleep in front of the TV and have no idea. I'd wake up, it'd be the same score. I don't even know the inning. Now, hopefully, it's a little more interesting. And I agree with you. I think if F1 doesn't produce, and Rob, as you said, on-track racing that is good enough, at least entertaining, this wave will recede. And I think we'll see less, we'll have not gotten the gains we could have gotten.
So Bahrain actually had less viewers.
Did it really?
Yeah, it was like, I forgot the exact number, but it was like, I can go get it. It was like 1.2 versus 1.3 last year or something like that. It was a small number or difference, but it was like, oh, interesting.
We have a question for you about Bahrain. You ready? It's a real fast one.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you could make up your own Bahrain GP, would it be on the short circuit as I'd prefer it be, or on the regular circuit as Rob would prefer it would be? Like 2020, right? They ran both in a row. And
The Sakir. Where did they run the Sakir one? Where did they run that? That was the short one.
It was on the short, so it was the same track, but they just cut across the back. Back of it.
I do like that one.
It was like a minute a lap. It was fast and furious. People were going around and then coming around again. They did like 70 some odd laps instead of 50.
71?
I want to say 71. That was when George had his little deputization with Mercedes. It didn't work. Anyway, would you go short? You'd say short?
I'd go short. Yeah, why not?
All right.
I liked it. I also liked the fact that just giving kind of like that, not so much the faster lap. So I'm going to liken it to, I went to Bristol, the NASCAR race at Bristol, which is the fastest quarter mile or whatever. Literally, it's a round bowl, and it's just awesome. And I'm not saying that Sakir is exactly the same way, but shortening it and having less time for fans to, like, in a certain spot to be able to see it, like, it is more exciting, right?
Great point.
Yeah. So I would go short, just because there's not, how many short tracks are there like that short? It was the
not shortest really on the calendar that year.
Yeah, I would do it.
I think Austria, is that another one of the really short ones? That always feels like they're going, they do like about 3,000 laps there because it's so short. But
Austria is, I want to see exactly how long Austria is though. That's a 71 lapper, and it is, it's 2.6 miles, 4.3 kilometers.
But being as we've segued into talking about Bahrain and maybe a little bit of this season, so there was a bit of a fallout of the Bahrain GP saying, it was a snooze fest, Red Bull's going to dominate, the world is falling in, everything's broken in Formula One.
That's just people that have watched.
Yeah, and I looked at it and I was thinking, okay, there were some stats that were put out there that there were like half the overtakes this year than there were last year. I'm like, okay, well, these are stats, let's dig into it. When I kind of looked into it, this year's Bahrain GP was the first one in a number of years that we've had no safety cars there. And I think safety cars are always one of the great equalizers that, they mess with strategy, potentially. They bunch everyone back up again. It's not a surprise that if you have a race that doesn't have one, and Red Bull have got a rocket ship, that's naturally going to be a circuit that plays to their advantage. We have no idea what that car was capable of doing last year because both of them blew up. So I think, for me, because I'm the eternal optimist, I don't want to call it already that the season's over. I just think it was a track that played into the strengths of Red Bull. They executed perfectly, and we didn't get a safety car to shake it up. Like, move on next.
Sakir, by the way, was 87 laps. For the record.
87, that was the number?
Yeah, I just looked it up real quick. It's 87 laps, 3.5 kilometers, 2.2 miles.
Bring it back. Bring it back.
To go into that, yeah, I'm first of all, there's no Mazepin and there's no Latifi on the grid, so there's no one, it's a good thing if all the race, like if I think that if all the 20 drivers, these are supposed to be the pinnacle of motorsport, if they're that good, right? That's a good thing. Less just needless crashing. I mean, obviously crashes happen even amongst the greatest drivers. That's fine. I'm going to say that it was still an exciting race. You just had to ignore the fact that Max and Checo were at the front. You had to kind of watch the midfield stuff.
Yep.
Which to me is exciting. Now, if you're someone new to the sport and all you know is Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, Daniel Ricciardo, yeah, you probably don't care about anything but what's at the top. But even the broadcast barely focused on Max. They couldn't. He was so far ahead.
You never saw him.
I quite honestly, I would like 2021 Abu Dhabi. A safety car would have maybe been beneficial to my team, right? Or Alonso, but really it wouldn't have changed how dominant Red Bull was. Not really. Not at all. We still would have been like, dude, you were 30 seconds ahead of everybody. Clear, like they are clearly ahead. I do think the track plays into their strengths. Yes, strategy is also a strength of theirs. So I think even if a safety car came in, they still would have been okay, right? It would have been teams like Ferrari that would have made some stupid mistake. We executed a double stack, and that was like victory. I mean, we were cheering like Johnny Drama, like
I celebrated the same thing. I'm a self-confessed Ferrari fan as well, and I cheered exactly the same thing. It was, and then you kind of look back at it and go, "Really? We just got excited about a double stack."
Well,
and
Rob wouldn't stop talking about it.
It wasn't even a proper double
no,
stack.
There was a
really.
gap.
It really
was like just a two.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a real double stack.
All right, we're gonna bring you in about 15 seconds behind each other. I mean, like,
so all they had to do was bring extra tires out. Effectively, is all that was. Just bring out the extra tires and be ready to go. It wasn't like a real double stack.
But you are right. The safety car aspect is great, but then you're almost like, are you embracing that, like the crash culture, like NASCAR has, right? NASCAR, it's like there's a freaking safety car or whatever they call it constantly. They're constantly out. I mean, when I was like I said, I went to Bristol last year and I'm going to Talladega this year, and it's like, that's part of the allure of going to watch the sport or the series. And I don't know if Formula One wants that either. Like, oh yeah, let's like come watch us because the cars crash all the time. And you're going to, watch 15 laps of cars going around at, quarter speed or no speed or in the pits because they got to stop. Like, I don't think we want that either. Yes, it's an equalizer. No, I'd rather not see them. I'd rather see cleaner racing, but good racing. And the cars are, quite frankly, like my gripe is the cars are just too big to ever have good racing. Like, you need big circuits for these big cars. They're just not there. I mean, you can't, and I know this has been, this is a drum that's been beat on plenty of times, but Monaco, the cars just, they don't work there anymore. And it's kind of like, what do you expect these guys to do racing there? I mean,
we're getting close.
So much. Yeah,
sorry, we're getting close to the size of the cars. Actually, when you watch them go around the famous hairpin at the hotel before they go into the tunnel, they're going to have to do a 3-point turn to get around that corner soon.
They really are. I mean, you almost have to go wide into the like you almost. Yeah, you're right. It's almost like a 3-point turn.
When you see some of the pictures, like of the evolution of the car sizes down the years, I mean, it makes you appreciate the kind of almost go-kart style things that were around even as far as the 80s, right? These things are tiny compared to these almost buses that we've got now. But so just flashing forward then, Ferrari fan to Ferrari fan, you can be quiet for a minute, Brian.
All right, I can try.
Is there an issue here this season, do you think, that well, we might get more exciting racing for the race for second in the constructors? Aston Martin, if Mercedes get their act together, it's going to be a Ferrari, Mercedes, Aston Martin shootout for second, and because of that extra competition, that's going to actually accentuate, if that's a word, I think I said the wrong word, Red Bull just disappearing out into the front. Or has Fred got something up his sleeve where they're going to come roaring back and take it to Red Bull?
That is a good question. Thankfully, this is not the 100 seconds of DRS because I need a second to process. I want to say that what you're saying, the latter part of what you said is accurate. Unfortunately, the realist in me, and also the person who's watched this team for, nearly 3 decades, and only had a small glimmer of hope or of prosperity in that time, I don't see it happening. Right. It's almost like, yes, I love the idea of Fred. I didn't hate Mattia from the perspective of he's a great engineer mind, and he should have probably been back in the engine, room design. Like, that's what he's good at. But to me, it just there's something that's signaling. And then you saw that their head aerodynamicist, he's actually he's going to McLaren. Where's he going? Yeah, McLaren.
I don't remember. I saw he's left, but I can't remember where he's going.
I think he's going to McLaren after a gardening leave. So it's like, okay, that's weird. You didn't see that kind of stuff like last year. All this stuff is going down, and they didn't change they didn't switch up anything. Now all of a sudden, one bad race, and I'm not going to deflect for a second, but I am going to say, look at even Mercedes, right, and other teams. It's almost like they watched Red Bull, and that put the fear of God in everybody. Everybody's like, oh my God, what do we do? This is the second year of the regulations. Newey, the aerodynamic god that he is, who can look at an object and see every single, aspect of it. But all these other guys can't, haven't been able to do that. So I think that is a big factor. I think everybody's weaknesses are going to be exploited over the next few, for the first couple months of the season. It's okay. How do you adjust? Because they are so far ahead. They had the same amount of time, or actually less time than all the other teams, really, in the wind tunnels and whatnot. And I think Ferrari's got to be looking at themselves saying, dude, we were so close last year. How is the car not significantly better? I don't know that it is significantly better. Even in testing, it wasn't impressive. Yes, they seem to have cranked up the speed a little bit, but at a sacrifice to what? The cornering, which they were really good at last year. The car was very agile. And like that scares me. It's like, oh, we chased them to get faster like they did in the corners, instead of just like continually like making our advantage even more of an advantage. That's what I should say, right?
That's a great point.
I mean, it really isn't fair, because they can take all the wind tunnel time the way they want, when Newey can actually see physics in real life, like Neo sees the Matrix. I mean, the penalty really should have been to say Newey can't work for you this year, and that would have hurt them. But
well, there was something about the cap cost too, and I don't want to get into that, but there was something about the cap cost that I believe was it did involve like his salary and how they call, like how he's actually.
Was he like a consultant or something?
He's actually technically employed by a different part of Red Bull organization, apparently, or something. I don't know. And he's kind of on loan. He's kind of doing a favor.
I'm laughing at this, right? I'm laughing because it's a loophole. And of course, you've got Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton fans that are freaking out, and other teams too, but they're the loudest about Red Bull. And it's like, oh, they're cheating, this and that. I'm like, are they cheating? Or they found a loophole, which if you read Adrian Newey's book, and I did numerous times. I even listened to it. I read it, and I tried to digest it. Like, finding loopholes is the name of the game. That is literally what Formula One is. Whether you're building a car or you're building a team, it's all about figuring out the loophole. You figure out the loophole, and that's how you find advantages. And this goes back to every team has found something that ended up getting technical directive out and whatever. But it's fascinating. It's fascinating to see how they're able to operate. And I mean, listen, Formula One is ruled by dynasties. There's always spurts of, yes, you have, sprinkled in winners and whatnot, but usually if you've nailed a set of regulations, you're going to carry that with you until they change the regulations again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look at Mercedes.
Ferrari in the early 2000s, Mercedes for their 7 or 8 years on this trot, whatever it was. And I think you're right.
Williams,
at the beginning of a Red Bull one. Yeah, Williams, of course. Mansell and the moustache back in the 90s.
Before that,
yeah, absolutely, 100%. Talking of things with 100 in them, what a segue. It's that time. It's that time, Vincenzo. It is time
Let's
for the
go.
100
Let's
seconds
do
of
whatever we
DRS.
gotta do. Okay.
So I'm going to get my timer sorted because I'm on the timing duty today and Brian is on the question asking.
Okay.
So I will do my duty here and say, Vincenzo, are you ready?
I guess so.
Brian, are you ready?
I don't have a choice.
I think I'm ready.
Okay, well, I'm going to count you guys down and we're going to start the 100 seconds of DRS in 3, 2, 1, go.
First poster you had on your bedroom wall.
Oh, jeez. Oh, God. Jerome Bettis.
Yes, the
Steelers running
bus.
back.
The
Yep, the
bus.
bus.
Best young driver in F1.
I hate to say it, but Piastri.
Okay. What's your favorite cheese?
Caciocavallo. It's from my parents' region of Italy.
Okay, I'll have to take your word for that. You may have just called me a name. Mario or Luigi?
It's me, Mario.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
No.
What's your favorite livery of all time on an F1 car?
Marlboro McLaren. I'd have to go with yeah.
The iconic red and white. I
Yeah,
got
it's
you.
just so awesome.
If you could add a James Bond type gadget to an F1 car, what would it be?
On the wheels, on something that like tears up someone else's wheels when you bump them, whatever that's called.
Love it. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Sleep in or up early?
Up early.
Fill in the blank. F1 in America is
Booming.
best thing to do on a rainy day.
Watch old F1 races.
I love it. DRS, good or bad?
Bad.
Okay. Tires, interesting or not?
Interesting.
Yes. Wet or dry race?
Wet.
What's your favorite non-F1 sport?
Football.
American
And that's
football?
time.
Okay.
Oh, that's time. I let that one sneak in. You just started asking it just as we
So
went to 100.
Steelers, American football Steelers, or did you lose the Steeler fandom?
Steelers. Oh yeah. So when my father moved to the United States, the Steelers were winning, and my father, as a calcio player, he didn't know anything about American football. Steelers were on TV winning. There was this guy named Franco Harris
Oh, yeah.
that was, Italian American. My dad's like, there's an Italian guy playing this sport, and so he just instantly became a Steelers fan and passed it down to me and my brother as we got old. When we were born, and that's it. I've always been a Steelers fan.
Amazing. Then I wish you luck with all the changes going on and Pickett and the whole quarterback situation and whatever happens. One of our questions we often ask is Ferrari or Ford, but I passed on that one because I think I knew the answer.
That's an obvious answer.
Although
Ford is exciting. Motorsport's exciting, but yeah, there's only one answer for me on that one.
Yeah, we should. Man, thanks for doing this. Thanks for joining us
cool.
here. We, I appreciate Rob stalking you just the right amount to get you to finally agree to say yes.
No, it was fun. I'm kidding. He didn't stalk me that hard.
That hard.
No,
Must
it was
raise my
fun.
game.
It was. Oh, jeez.
Well, no, you're good now. You're safe. It's the other people
Right.
I feel bad for.
I'm good. No, this is good. This is awesome.
Well, you are now friend of the pod, Vincenzo Landino, and everybody needs to follow you on Twitter at Vincenzo Landino, readqualifier.com, and all of the other avenues. Please follow Vincenzo because I get amazing learnings, insight, and knowledge out of the content. So I'm appreciative of you for doing that, Vincenzo. Thanks, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And any other listeners who might want to do the 100 seconds of DRS, tackle this daunting task like Vincenzo did, please let us know at F1 Dirty Sides. Shoot us a tweet or a DM. We're always happy to have you guys on. Vincenzo, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Vincenzo. That was a great conversation. Lots of fun. Really appreciate you making the time for us and just to get Rob off your back, I'm sure. But it is Rowie Keek again. And so on Monday, or at least according to Rob, on Monday it starts. The Rob the Killjoy. So in 2 days it'll be Rowie Keek for me, but Jeddah. We are our third installation of the Saudi Arabian race. I'm excited. Like, I gotta be honest, this has been a roller coaster for me. I did not want to see it run. It was run at the end of would have been 21. It was the second to last race or so, third to last race in 21, and they did a quick turn and it was second in 22, and it's second again now in 23. It's a street race, but it's super fast. It is a super fast course, and I don't know what it is about me. I love F1. I love racing. I get nervous because of the speeds in the walls. And there's no runoff. There's no gravel. It's walls and top speeds. And we've seen some monstrous crashes. Not as many in 21, but in 22 we had some. We'll talk about it here in a second. And I don't know. But here's the kicker. I really enjoyed last year's race, so I don't know what to say about that.
Absolutely. I mean, it's quick. It feels like it's got that edge of danger to it. I mean, last year, remember as well, it was all set against the backdrop of a missile strike that was going on in the build up to the race, which was absolutely insane. But it does produce good races. I mean, like I said, good races. I guess that has to be in context. It's only been held twice, but so far it's 2 for 2. We had Checo had pole from the 2 Ferraris last year.
His first ever pole, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and it was a Ferrari sandwich because we had Perez and Max either side of Charles and Carlo. Mick had a big crash in Q2. He went off to hospital and had to withdraw from the race, so we didn't get Mick taking place. And good old Latifi hit the wall on lap 15 to bring out a safety car, which you got to think there's going to be one this year as well. And that's what really kind of, I think, spices this one up, because I think every team is nervous of the fact that it's like Monaco with 3 times the speed.
Right.
Your chances of a safety car, someone's only got to make a real small error here, and there's no runoff, so you are kissing concrete if you make a mistake.
I mean, it puts pressure on the rookies, right? When you think,
Yeah.
I mean, not like anyone's driven there a lot. The most experience is 2 races. But for the rookies, precision will be super important at this. High-speed precision, no less. So I'm not as worried about, like, De Vries. He's been racing everything forever. But, like, for, Logan, who is new to F1, and Piastri, who was away for a year. I mean, this is like a high-risk, some reward type situation.
And talking about high-speed precision, the high-speed precision that you remember from last year was Max and Charles daring each other to go over the DRS line first, because we got into that insane situation where it was more beneficial to slow down and cross the line second, so you got DRS, and we had some epic back and forth, but kind of manufactured through that, no, after you. No, after you, sir, at the DRS line. It was insane.
2 of my favorite stories of last year were at Jeddah. One is that. One is watching, I think it was Max locked up a little bit, trying to get behind Charles for the DRS line, just so that as he turned that big, sort of large, sweeping hairpin, you had the wing open after that, and you just blast away from the other guy, and you knew you could do that. And so I thought that was insane, the 2 of them slowing down to go right behind the other guy to get DRS as they came around that hairpin. That was wild. And then the other part was, if you remember the opening of the race, Esteban and Fernando in the Alpines were battling it out. And I was yelling at the TV, like, what are they doing? Yeah. Like, is Otmar not paying attention? Are they going to allow 2 guys to run each other off the track? They didn't. They both finished. But I think they did at least. But it was wild. Just watch it. They didn't hit each other, I'll say that. It was wild.
Yeah, and it is a bit, it's, I think, Quali and the racer at night, and I think FP3, FP1 and 2 are in the searing heat, and it is a war of attrition in this one. We got quite a lot of retirements last year. Just looking down here, we had Albon, Valtteri, Alonso, Danny Rick, and Latifi all failed to finish. Yuki actually failed to start due to his power unit on the way to the grid. So it was a big slice of cars that didn't finish last time round. So I think I'm really looking forward to it. I think especially with Aston Martin getting their nose into the mix now, if we've got Red Bull, Aston Martin, Ferrari, if Mercedes can, I mean, I don't think they were that strong last year, so I don't expect them to be strong here again. But if they can somehow bring it, and we get a couple of safety cars to prevent any big 30-second gaps developing, you're constantly being concertina back down again, we could have a real ding-dong set of battles here. I'm really looking forward to it.
I am too. And we're going to learn something as well. Just last thing I'll say about this upcoming race. Pay attention to who does well here, because it's a high-speed track. Last year, we saw cars like the Alpine, in particular last season, who was faster on a straight, but not as good around the corners. And so they did better at high-speed tracks. We will learn a lot for the rest of the year in terms of cars who may overperform at a high-speed track. Now, my only caveat is I'm pretty sure Red Bull have a great top speed. So is there a chance Max goes 2 for 2 in the witness protection program where he pulls away and we don't see him for half the race or most of the race because he's so far out ahead? I think there might be.
Yeah, I'm not sure because this one isn't as bad. Memory serves me, isn't as bad tire deg wise as Bahrain. And the top speed through the speed traps, bizarrely, Lewis Hamilton was fastest in the speed traps at Bahrain. So, and actually Red Bull I didn't take a note of it, but they were actually surprisingly low down. They were like 4th or 5th in the speed traps. So maybe look, is he going to be strong? Yes. Is the car going to be amazing? Yes. Does he drive off into the distance right from the get-go here? I don't think he does. I think the other cars, reliability issues aside, if Ferrari are able to turn that engine back up again and run to their full potential, Aston looks quick. Alfa Romeo look quick. I just don't think they've got the race duration to go all the way through. I don't think Valtteri is up there. But no, here we go. The optimistic veil approach again. I don't see Max running off into the distance and going into witness protection. Feel free to clip that and play it back to me when we record this after the race.
I have it ready already. So it'll be fun. I can't wait to see it. And like you said, we'll learn something about who's got the high speed pace, race pace, because that'll benefit us at a lot of tracks throughout the rest of the year. We will learn now. Rob, anything else you want to hit, my friend?
Other than you for that ridiculous Toto interview.
No, I was hoping you'd forgotten by now. Everybody, thanks so much for joining us. It's a pleasure having your time. We hope you have a wonderful week, and we will see you after Jeddah.